Hey, what's up everyone? Josh here and welcome to another video. We got a good one for you today because Neural DSP has released their Soldano 100X plugin, the Soldano SLO, the Super Lead Overdrive, which is one of the most iconic high gain metal amps in the world, rock amps. You've heard it on recordings, even if you don't know it. It's that iconic, it's that amazing. Let's listen to how this plugin sounds in a quick mix, and then we'll take a look at it together and explore some sounds. Let's dive right in. Don't you just love that, man? It is such a rock and roll machine. It just loves to give you the goods when it comes to that 80s, early 90s rock sound, you know? I could do that all day and just groove on that because there's lots of saturation, there's lots of good clarity there, and it's beefy enough to stay in the mix but not paper thin or anything, right? So that there is the default tone. And I love that Neural always dials in a default tone for us, because to me, I think they're going, you know, we want this amp to sound a certain way when someone hears it for the first time. Not just everything at noon, but kind of dial in just a little bit to give you a first impression, and this definitely fits that bill, man. Sounds great. So anyway, let's take a look at the plugin a little bit here, and then we'll talk about a few sounds. So starting at the beginning, as always, we have here our pre-effects, or our stomp box section, whatever you want to call it. And this here is going to be loaded with 4 pedals for us to choose from. So you have a compressor here. I like the built-in compressor if you want to really compress that signal. So you have a fast and slow compression. And I really dig that. I usually use a compressor on the post side of things, but I like that it's here, especially for some of the clean tones that we'll check out. You also have your 2 overdrives. You have this blue one and you have this kind of grayish green one here. I'll put them both at the same settings and then we'll demo them real quick. So that's about the same. So here's the blue one. All right, and then we'll try out the green one here. Moving on to the chorus pedal here, we have one built in with some really good features. So it's obviously a little more showcased on the clean tones, but you could get some really fat 80s chorusy type distorted tones with that. And I love that this chorus pedal again is on the front end. I like how a chorus sounds before the amp, especially when you want to get that style of tone. So that's the front end. Let's check out the amp section. So the amp face, again, you're going to spend most of your time here, and the Soldano SLO 100 really is a cool amp to check out because they got more than just the basic controls going on. But before we dive into that, let's talk about some of the top features here. So you have your input control, you have your built-in noise gate, you have a transposer. So just if you're not familiar with that, it's essentially allows you to change the pitch of your whole guitar by just doing this. Pretty fun stuff. You could go pretty crazy there. What I typically use it for is if I'm too lazy to tune down, I'll tune it down like 4 steps and then, you know, just little tricks like that if you don't want to mess with tuning your guitar, or let's say you're somewhere where somebody's playing a different tuning and you say, oh, you want to go to E standard? Okay, let me just do this real quick. There we go, because I play an E flat. So bingo, transposer is a great tool. It is one of the X options that they included, or X features, I should say, that's included with the new X update. You can choose stereo or mono for your recording setup, whatever you're into there. Your preset bar, and just like the Nameless X, they really upped the ante on these presets. There are so many to choose from. And what I love about this is it's great starting places. So many cool starting places to get your tone journey going and then go from there. And most of how I do my presets is I find one I kind of like, I tweak it to the way I like it, and then go from there. So you'll be full of options here. You'll have plenty to choose from to see what you're into and get going. Neural DSP has included, of course, their own array of presets, and then I've got a few we'll check out. So there's that. Then you can save them, delete them, whatever you want up here. And then you have the doubler, so that takes us from this to this. So that really adds that cool doubling effect, kind of some delay between the two speakers. I love the doubler. It just really brings that tone to life. Maybe not something you're going to use in a mix, but for live or doing something like this, it's awesome. So there's your doubler, and then you have your output control. Let's take a look at this Soldano SLO 100, the Super Lead Overdrive. A masterpiece of an amplifier. Kind of sounds a little close. Let me turn my volume down. It sounds a little bit Mesa-ish, you know, kind of the old Mark II type Mesas, but hot rodded and with a few quality of life features that are pretty cool. So first of all, you have your overdrive or your normal settings. So when you click that, you'll notice we lose just some basic preamp and volume controls there. That's all that's doing. And then on the normal, you can switch between clean and crunch. So just as it stands right now, this is the clean. And then you have the crunch channel. Sounds pretty good. And then, of course, you could have it bright or not bright, your choice. This is with it off. And then this is with it on. I usually keep it on unless I'm doing some kind of a real mellow, clean thing. I really like the bright switch. And then, of course, you have the overdrive channel, which is where we're going to spend most of our time with an amp like this. For your controls, your preamps right here, dial in how much of that you want, and then you have your bass, middle, treble, pretty standard stuff. And then you have your master volumes here for both channels, and then you have your presence and depth. So this is like presence control, and then depth control, or like a resonance control. So let's kind of check this out real quick. So on the overdrive, and yes, it goes to 11, right? That's how it should be. Then you have your bass, middle, treble, and then over here, your presence control. There's a really interesting thing that happens with the presence control between 9 and 11. I want you to listen to the sweep on this. It gets a little intense, but I like some of the options it adds sonically for those higher registers, because, you know, we'll show you in a minute what I did with that, but there's just that extra little sweep there that is pretty cool. Then you have your depth control, of course. So kind of like a resonance control, you know, adding just a little bit more beef there. So those are your basic controls on the front of the amplifier. They're a little tough to see blacked out like this, but you can kind of see what's going on. And then if you right mouse click anywhere here, you can change the skins. I like the purple the most, but the snake is the default, so that's pretty cool. Let's move on to the next section here, which is the cabinet section. Now the cabinet section is very well done, and I love that they've kept it pretty similar throughout the years, because it's really easy to grasp. But anyway, you have lots of microphone options to choose from, or you can load your own IR. And then down here you have your standard controls, or you can click and move them around yourself, whatever you're into. And then you have your room send and blend there, which is cool. They introduced the room mic with the John Petrucci archetype plugin, and now it's one of the X features that has been in all of them, which is great. You can have two things loaded up, two mics or two IRs, and then of course you have controls that are independent of each other. Pan them, do whatever you want. And then you can also manipulate the amp face from here, which is cool, so you can work on it in tandem. It's a little tough to see, but I can see kind of what I'm doing, and that's all I need, so that's good stuff. Again, great cab work from Neural as always. One of the things I say about their cab sim is that I don't find myself in here much doing too much with the sound because I like how they dial them in. They are very appropriate and they sound great. But let's move on to the EQ. Now the EQ in this looks simple, and it is, but you do have some cool options like your high pass filter here. So you can kind of tame some of that low end, and then you have your low pass filter. If you want to tame some of that sharpness. And I actually found myself using the high and low pass filters a little more in this plugin than others because it can get a little fizzy with the Soldano SLO 100, or at least to my ears. And oftentimes I find myself using these filters more than the sliders, but you do have a 9-band here, so go nuts. Next, we have the post effects section. Now we're starting to see that Neural has really dialed in their delay and reverb modules. It's pretty much the same, I think, don't quote me unless I'm right, that's in the Nameless, this cool pedal they have here that has this look to it, and you can sync it, you can tap it, or do freeform, and then you have the ping pong. Then you have your reverb pedal here, again, simple, works well, sounds great. What more do you need? So I've really enjoyed seeing the post effects they've included in these X updates because I think they're very solid. A couple more things before we go into sounds here. You have a tuner that you can use as a live tuner if you want, and it just hangs out down here for you, and it's not too distracting. I know some other plugins I've used that have a live tuner, the tuner's just kind of going all over and I find myself looking at it and I guess I'm easily distracted, but there's that. You also have MIDI control, and then in the standalone you have a metronome that's fully featured, but in the DAW you don't get that, so there's that. All right, let's talk about a few sounds with this. I'll show you what I like to do with the amp. First and foremost is going to be the preset I used for the song you heard, and I just love how this thing crunches and drives. I really love that, man. And I didn't do much to the amp face here or anything, but you could dig into that and make it super chunky. You could wring stuff out if you wanted to. Really, really cool. So I'll show you what I'm doing with that one real quick. This one, over on the front, I'm using the blue drive here. Pretty typical setup with just a little bit of extra drive because I really like some of that mud on the low end, especially on a 6-string. You know, if you're playing a 7, you might find yourself not giving it some extra drive. But anyway, moving on to the amp face here, pretty simple stuff. I like a lot of bass in this amp. It just sounds right. It doesn't sound too woofy. It sounds just beefy, and that's what I dig. So that's my kind of mainstay flagship preset for this, if you will. I just think it sounds great, man. That's how I want the SLO to sound in my book, man. All right, this next one is kind of a crunch setting here, and I kind of had power metal in mind for this one because I love the way this amp crunches and you don't have to really drive it to oblivion and back to get it where you want. Check this out. I think it sounds really nice in that crunchy kind of, you know, mid-gain world there. It's very bright and it cuts right through. And then on the amp face, you'll notice that I've got the preamp pretty dang low at like a 2 here. And then I'm scooping the mids just a touch, keeping the presence fairly high and a little less on the depth than our last one. Let's talk about something a little more scooped. I think that sounds pretty dang good. I'm kind of, you know, in my book, I'm thinking, you know, kind of Testament type stuff or maybe some Metallica type stuff. I just love the way that when you scoop the mids on this, it doesn't just totally kill the tone, but it leaves enough on the other ends to kind of beef it up and push it through. Presence is almost all the way up, and this is a good example of that presence control. So listen to the sweep on this. You see, when we kind of break 10, we're just kind of taking it to that next level, you know, and I really dig that tone for this, and that's probably most of what we're using to get that. Let's move on to a more shreddy type preset, and this one I'm using for, you know, the solo type stuff. You gotta love it. So really easy to dial in with the SLO. I mean, this is where it lives, right? So I do enjoy that I don't have to do much to this to get it where I want it. So there's kind of a shreddy preset for it. I really dig that one, and I gotta have this one purple, man. That's just, it's got the purple vibe to it, you know? It looks good. All right, moving on, a couple more to show you. Let's talk about a couple clean type things here. So this one I've kind of dialed in to be versatile, and I'll switch to my neck pickup on this one and show you what this one's all about. Sounds good, but this one is versatile because if I go to the humbucker, and this one's got the dimebucker in it, so it is pretty aggressive, but it really changes that sound. So I like that one for my edge of breakup type stuff. Let me switch the pickup, I think it'll sound better like this. Sounds really nice, and if you wanted to add a little more delay to that or reverb to that, you could really space it out, you know. But I did go ahead and make one that was a little cleaner, so this is my more clean preset, true clean if you will, and we're using the clean channel of the amp on this one, and on the front end we're using compression and a little bit of chorus to get this effect. So here we go. Really nice, and one thing we can do is take the chorus off to give it a little more natural type sound, so that would sound like this. And I kind of prefer it with the chorus off now that I've played it, so maybe I'll make another preset here. So I just hit save as, and we'll just do Calmdowno 2. Hooray! So now I've got another preset. So all in all, Neural DSP swings the bat, hits another grand slam for us with this SLO 100. If this is your first time experiencing the Soldano, then you can have it with all the X updates. If you're somebody that's transitioning from the original plugin to this one, you're gonna love what you see, love what you hear, and be inspired by all of these cool new features. So go check it out for yourself on their website. I'll have a link to it in the description below. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and we'll see you on the next video.